Hi, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use mixed references in Microsoft Excel so that your formulas are much more secure when copied from cell to cell, making your spreadsheet a whole lot easier to maintain. My name is Albert Kitamirike, and on this channel, I share insights from Microsoft Excel, some that are less known or understood, but help to increase your efficiency in using this popular spreadsheet software. This video is the third and last in this series on cell references. In the last two videos, I explored relative and absolute references. If you have not already, I invite you to go and watch those. I have included a link to them in the description below, as well as up above somewhere on the screen. Be sure to stay around to the end of the video because I will share a tip on how to quickly set cell references, as well as a checklist that summarizes my thought process in working out the appropriate reference types to use. Today we take a look at mixed references. With mixed cell references, both relative and absolute references are represented. Either the column or row elements is fixed and the other is not. To help you decide whether mixed references should be used, take a few moments to think about what will happen when you copy the initial formula around the spreadsheet. As you paste a formula containing only relative references to another location, the new formula will no longer point to the original value. Let us consider a couple of examples. In the first example, we build a summary of our sales data by product ID and by customer ID. The product IDs are listed in the top row, while the customer IDs are listed in the left column of our summary table. We shall deploy the SUMIFS function to create our summary. Briefly, the SUMIFS function extends the functionality of its older sibling, SUMIF, and enables adding up of data based on not just a single criterion, but multiple ones. The following arguments are prescribed for the SUMIFS function. 1. The column that contains the values we intend to sum up. 2. The range that contains the criteria values we are going to test. And 3. The criteria or test that defines those cells we are interested in. If we have multiple criteria to test, as we do in this example, we shall include another pair of arguments for the range that contains the criteria values to test and the criteria. Right then, let us get started with assembling our initial formula. In the first cell of our yellow summary area, I am going to enter the initial formula equals SUMIFS, open brackets, and then the sum range, which will be the column of our data source in which there are the sales amounts, and that is column G, starting at row number 5. So I will enter G5 to G103. 103 is the last row of our data source. The next argument is the criteria range, which will be the customer ID column in our data source, and that is in column D, starting at D5 to D103. It has got to have exactly the same number of rows as the sum range. The third argument is the customer ID, for which we need to find sales amounts in this column. And that customer ID will be initially T5. T5. That one there. Next argument is the product ID column in our data source, which is in column E, again starting at E5 to E103. And finally, the product ID for which we will need to find matching sales amounts. Initially, that is going to be U4. Close brackets, press enter, and that is our formula right there. If I did nothing else to this formula and just copied it to the rest of the summary area, I will get incorrect results. And that is because all the references I had in my initial formula change as I paste it into other places. So before I copy the formula, I need to change the references accordingly. The first change relates to the sales amount argument, which is the first one. I need to change those references into fixed references so that as I copy the formula elsewhere, I am always referring to column G, which contains our sales amounts. The next change relates to the customer ID column, D5 to D103. I also need to turn that into a fixed reference. The third argument, T5, relates to the initial customer ID. I need to turn that into a mixed reference, whereby the column letter is fixed, so that I'm always referring to these customer IDs in column T. The next change relates to the product ID column in the data set, column E. That has to be a fixed reference. And finally, the product ID in row number 4 needs to be a mixed reference. So I shall insert a $sign before the number 4. And that's all the changes that we need to make. Press enter. And if I copy the formula now, I get the correct results as expected. A perfect summary. The final example demonstrates how to calculate cumulative totals using mixed references. The trick we shall use is to construct a range of values that can expand or contract as we copy the initial formula down or up. Let us see this in action. In the first cell of the column headed cumulative sales, I'm going to enter the formula equals sum G5 to G5. Column G contains all of our sales amounts that we need to accumulate. If I simply copy this formula all the way down, I simply reproduce the figures on the left. And that is not what we want. What we need is the cumulative equivalent of those sales amounts. So we need to change this formula before we copy it across. And the change that is required is to convert the first reference, G5, into a fixed reference. That is all. Now when we copy it down, we get the cumulative sales. And that is because the range inside the sum function keeps expanding. Keeps expanding as you go along the column. And that's it. And now the tip.
While in Formula Edit mode, using the F4 key, Microsoft Excel allows you to cycle through the different types of cell referencing available. Once you get to your preferred one, just press Enter. To activate the Formula Edit mode, simply double-click the cell containing the formula. Alternatively, select the cell with the formula and press F2. Then place your cursor within the cell reference you need to edit. With the blinking cursor right there, press F4 repeatedly and Excel will insert the possible dollar signs for you. And now my thought process for choosing a referencing type. I always ask myself a series of questions. Do I need to copy the formula after writing it? If not, reference types should not matter. I shouldn't concern myself with reference types. But if I need to copy the formula, then I will consider the next questions and points. Should the value the formula returns change relative to the formula location? If not, use a fixed reference. However, if the value returned by the formula should change, then what is the copy and paste direction? If the direction is to copy across a row, that is, copying the formula into other columns, then I will fix the row element of the reference. However, if the direction is down or up a column, in other words, copying the formula to other rows, then fix the column element of the reference. That's it with cell references, a very important aspect of using Microsoft Excel efficiently. I hope the discussions I've provided have helped you to appreciate the application of and the differences between the three types of cell referencing. Feel free to review the playlist again to remind yourself of the full discussion. I would like to hear from you in the comments below any additional thoughts or feedback you may have. Don't forget to click the like and subscribe buttons if this has been of value to you, as well as the bell icon so you get notified as soon as I release the next video. I'll see you on the next one.